They fled Russia to escape the war, the mobilization, the prison sentences. Some made it as far as Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. It was not far enough. Detained at workplaces, lured across borders, seized from shelters, they keep reappearing inside Russian prisons. Leaving Russia, it turns out, is not the same as escaping it. After Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, hundreds of thousands of Russians fled the country hoping to escape mobilization, prosecution, or political persecution. But for some, crossing the border was only the beginning. Across several neighbouring countries, a growing number of Russians have reportedly been detained, deported, or even abducted before suddenly reappearing inside Russian prisons. According to Medusa, leaving Russia does not necessarily place people beyond the reach of its security services. While some countries have extradited Russian nationals through formal legal procedures, others have seen individuals deported or allegedly seized and returned to Russia under far more controversial circumstances. One of the earliest reported cases involved Dmitry Setrakov, who was mobilized into the Russian army in September 2022. After deserting his unit, he escaped to Armenia with the assistance of the anti-war group Idite Lesum. However, in December 2023, he was detained during an operation involving Russian military police, taken to Russia's military base in Gyumri and sent back to Russia. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan later described the operation as an illegal action carried out on Armenian territory. In his interview with France 24 in February 2024, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan had said,
That incident, the alarm about those incidents greatly worried us. And we are also investigating that case, and if it turns out that everything is as you say, it will of course also lead to certain consequences, because of course we cannot tolerate illegal actions on the territory of our country.
Another Russian deserter, Anatoly Shketinin, was detained outside the Russian consulate in Gyumri in April 2024, before also being taken to the Russian military base. Although he later claimed he had returned voluntarily, a military court in Russia subsequently convicted a man with the same name in a desertion case. Similar incidents have emerged elsewhere. In Georgia, activist Raphael Shepelev disappeared from Tbilisi before reportedly being lured into Russian-controlled South Ossetia, where he was detained and eventually transferred to Russia. He was later declared legally insane and ordered into compulsory psychiatric treatment. In Kazakhstan, former Russian soldier Kamil Kasimov, who had obtained legal residency after refusing to return to the army, was reportedly detained at his workplace by Russian investigators and taken across the border. A Russian military court later sentenced him to 6 years in prison for wartime desertion. Kyrgyzstan has also seen several controversial cases. Activist Lev Skoryakin disappeared from a shelter in Bishkek before resurfacing inside Moscow's Butyrka prison. Alyona Krylova, a former human rights campaigner, was reportedly lured to return before being sentenced in Russia. Meanwhile, anti-war activist Alexei Rozhkov, accused of setting fire to a military enlistment office, said Kyrgyz security officers handed him over to Russia. He said,
I was tortured. My captors pulled a bag over my head and shocked me with a stun gun.
Later, he was sent to a pre-trial detention center in Yekaterinburg, and the charges against him were upgraded. He was convicted of carrying out a terrorist attack, justifying terrorism, and spreading fakes about the Russian army, and sentenced to 16 years in prison. Perhaps the most recent case is that of Georgy Pirogov. After leaving Russia following mobilization, he traveled to Uzbekistan on a business trip in 2024 and disappeared. 2 years later, it emerged that a Moscow court had sentenced him to 23 years in a maximum security prison on treason charges. His family insists he was abducted and forcibly returned to Russia. For many Russians who fled hoping to find safety abroad, these cases suggest that crossing a border may not always guarantee protection. As reports of detentions, deportations, and alleged abductions continue to emerge, the question of how far Russia's reach extends beyond its own territory remains deeply contentious. Russia may have lost dozens of intelligence officers across Europe after the invasion of Ukraine, but according to new reports, many of them have simply found a new base of operations. And that new front in the global spy war is Japan. A New York Times investigation, citing current and former officials from 5 Western intelligence agencies, claims that Russian military intelligence has established an extensive espionage network inside Japan to obtain sensitive technologies for Moscow's war effort. According to the report, the operation is centered on a previously undisclosed unit of Russia's military intelligence agency, known as the 20th Directorate, which is allegedly operating from Tokyo. The officers are said to be posing as businessmen and diplomats while purchasing, soliciting, or stealing advanced technologies that are then smuggled back to Russia for military use. Western intelligence officials claim the network is being coordinated by an officer working under the cover of Russia's state airline, Aeroflot. According to the report, Soviet and Russian intelligence services have long used the national carrier as cover for espionage operations abroad. One of the key figures in the network is reportedly an experienced intelligence officer named Filchenkov, who is said to coordinate with logistics companies that transport goods from Japan to Russia. One such company identified in the report is Proco Air, which describes itself as a bridge between Japan and Russia. It reportedly ships cargo via third countries, including Sri Lanka and Uzbekistan, where Aeroflot then collects the goods and transports them onwards to Russia. The allegations come as Ukraine continues to warn that foreign technology remains critical to Moscow's weapons production. According to Ukraine's Sanctions Commissioner, Japanese-made components have been found in around 90% of Russian missiles and drones, although most were originally exported for civilian purposes before allegedly being diverted into Russia's military supply chain. The War and Sanctions Project has identified at least 227 Japanese-made components inside Russian weapons. Ukrainian officials have reportedly presented Japanese authorities with documents and other evidence showing how Japanese technology is ending up inside Russian weapons. However, according to the report, Tokyo has been slow to respond. On July 13, Japan said that it recognized the need to counter foreign intelligence better after the New York Times report. Chief Government Spokesman Minoru Kihara said,
"We recognize that in a rapidly changing security environment, there is a growing need to counter foreign intelligence activities, such as the acquisition of critical information that threaten Japan's national security. Tokyo must address this issue with even greater rigor."
Japan has long been described by intelligence experts as a spy paradise. Following the Second World War, the country never rebuilt a dedicated foreign intelligence service and has relied heavily on intelligence shared by the United States. Japanese officials acknowledge the espionage threat and say reforms are already underway. A new National Intelligence Council and National Intelligence Bureau have been established, while an anti-spy law is expected later this year to strengthen Japan's counter-espionage capabilities. The report also notes that in February, a Russian Foreign Intelligence Service officer operating undercover while posing as a Ukrainian citizen was exposed in Japan. The man, a Russian national in his 30s, left Japan and returned to Russia in March without facing trial. The allegations are also likely to raise fresh concerns over Japan's role in the Global Combat Air Programme, the joint sixth-generation fighter jet project with the United Kingdom and Italy, one of the West's most sensitive defence collaborations.